Welcome to another episode of Dad's Old Car. In our last episode I spoke to Neil about his beautiful Vauxhall Velox convertible built by Holden in Australia. But anyway, he's got another one, a bit older, so let's talk to Neil about that. This is another outstanding convertible. Again, you can keep yourself out of the weather with the lid there. Is this an EIP or
LIP?
LIP.
If you want to be really technical, it's an LBP, but we won't go there.
No. So obviously there's no outside door handle. Just looking at it, so when you get in it, you've got to sort of lift the flap up to put your...
there's a little flap on the side curtain,
so you can get in there. Yeah. And this is what, a 50?
49.
49?
49.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And these too were popular in New Zealand back in their time.
Yeah.
We've already sort of had one.
Yeah.
One of my uncles had one and had a tow bar on it, and we'd put a rope on the tow bar, go out to Muriwai Beach, sit on a sack tied to the rope, and then he'd fly around and we'd just sort of...
I've heard of people doing that with a bonnet.
Yeah, that's right.
Somebody I knew used to do that on a paddock.
Yeah, flying around on a bonnet. Yeah, somebody did tell us that story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right.
I've seen it done.
I just noticed also you've got a couple of butterfly bolts there that can just go down.
If you like bugs, fold the windscreen down. It doesn't get folded down.
No. Do you take this to many shows?
Oh,
yes and
no. So in 23 years it's done 12,000 miles, so it doesn't get used a lot.
No.
It sits in the shed most of the time.
And it's got a 6-cylinder engine in it?
It's a 6-cylinder, yeah.
Right. So when I just imagine, like Chev was 444 forever, and then only 28 they went to 6.
Yeah.
And I don't think they went to V8 for a long time after that. But when did Vauxhall go to 6? Have you any idea?
I've got a 1928.
Oh, okay.
They brought out 6-cylinder overhead valve motor in the 2060.
Wow.
Which is a huge thing.
Yeah.
I've got one of them as well.
And this is 3 on the tree or 4?
3-speed.
Yep.
Same as that, but it hasn't got overdrive.
No, but again, a very, very cute dash.
Yeah.
Now, we've spoken to people about who get their car, and it looks like this, but we've got no idea what it was like, when they actually got it. What was this like when you got it?
Wasn't ideal, but I wanted one. I saw a photograph of one of these in the Restored Cars magazine when I was going to college, and I thought, wow, I've never seen one of these. I wouldn't mind one of those. And I did eventually manage to get one in 1995, and this is why where do I put those? What happens if you buy a car over the phone and pick it up at night? You end up with that. It was a kit of parts.
You could say it was a wreck.
It was very much a wreck. Yeah. Junk, a lot of people described it as. Yeah. A big pile of junk.
Well, and there it is coming home.
There it is coming home. My mate Bernie towed it home with his Falcon for me. And the only way to sort out the big pile of junk was to put it back together.
Right. Is that fiberglass? The body?
No, that's all steel.
Oh,
it's all steel. It's wooden. This one's wooden frame. That one's all steel.
Right.
But there's a lot of wood in this.
And the upholstery, you did this yourself?
No, that was done at Bristol's in Upper Hutt.
Oh, okay. Right. No, they've done a beautiful job with that.
Matches the original
material.
Exactly. David made all the door trims with the embossed V in it.
Yes.
Each one of these door trims took them a day to make.
Really? So you need a little bit of a mould or something to
They're ripped down dowel.
Oh, okay. Wow.
To get the contour. Yeah. Originally it was pressed cardboard.
Oh, really?
But it was shot.
So you wouldn't want to get it wet.
It was shot. No, he made a fantastic job.
Absolutely. Can we see what the engine looks like?
Yeah, it's dirtier than the other.
Oh, really? You've got an in-cab release?
Yep. Yeah, these were...
That doesn't look too much different from what's in the other one. I mean,
It doesn't
it's
look a lot different, but
no.
it's a very different engine.
really.
This is a long stroke, and
Yep.
that's a short stroke.
Oh, okay.
Lots of torque.
So she gets up and goes.
It goes all right. It'll cruise. It cruises about 55,
Really?
60 mile an hour.
Wow.
55 is comfortable.
And you've got the car would have been similar to this that you came home in.
Yes, I've got several. But yeah, I've got my grandfather's original LIP that when I was bought, he bought it in 52.
Yes.
I still own it. And I was brought home from maternity hospital when I was born in it.
Wow, that's
And
amazing.
I've got another 4 or 5 sedans as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're a Vauxhall nut.
Yeah, that's one way to describe it. Yeah, yeah.
Excellent. You
Got a
don't
few.
see very many Vauxhalls these days. I mean, I'm sure there's a Vauxhall club, and
Yeah.
they go on runs, and suddenly you see a whole bunch of them going down the road.
Yeah.
But by and large, you just don't see them at all.
No, you don't.
No, but back in the 50s, the 60s, they were absolutely everywhere. Yeah, a bit like Toyotas now. You know.
Oh, that's right. Well, there were thousands of these things, that model around.
I went to
Literally.
England. It was about 2016
Yeah.
to talk to a man called Kitchen, Don Kitchen. Don Kitchen made the Comma TS3 engine in 1946. He designed
right,
it,
yeah.
and then through to 1954 they worked and finally it got produced and stuck in a truck, and they were very, very popular. Next door to them was the Bedford factory,
All right. Yeah.
and if the Comma factory was this big, the Bedford factory was
Huge.
that big.
Yeah.
It was absolutely huge, and I think they made Vauxhalls
Yeah.
there as well.
Well, they had a couple of Luton, and I think there was another one at Dunstable or somewhere.
Dunstable, yeah, that's where the one we were looking at. Yeah. So anyway, thousands of these were produced back in the time. Excellent. As I said, you don't see many of them these days.
No.
And so, what's the highlight of both of these cars for you? What's delicious about them?
I like them.
Yeah, good start.
That's a good start, isn't it? No, I really don't know. I like these because I've always had them.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
my whole life I've been around L-bottle Vauxhalls.
Right. I see one for sale up in Whangarei. We were going past there the other. Oh, look at that! Yeah.
You need one.
I need one. Of course I
Probably
do.
like a hole in your head.
But if it's anything like you got this, I'm a driver, not a fixer up.
Yeah.
Well, I can make them. If they break down, I can fix them.
Well, they don't break down.
Get them going again. But
Maintain things that don't break down.
yeah. But some guys like to restore them.
Oh, yeah,
That's
yeah.
their whole life.
Yes.
And once they've restored it, sell it,
Yeah.
and then on to the next job.
Yeah, I'm not big on selling.
No, fair enough. No. Oh well, good on you, Neil.
Yeah, good to
Lovely
meet you.
to meet you.
I'm
And,
surprised you came down, but you'll love it here.
a fabulous pair of cars. Neil's cars were at the recent Wheels at Wairarapa event, as was Graham's Saxon. And Graham's had this car all his life. It came into the family about 1917 and has been there ever since. So let's have a chat to Graham. With me is Graham, and the car beside us is called a Saxton, S-A-X-O-N, Saxton. And it was built 1913, 14, Graham?
1914, this one is.
1914. Now the people born in 1914 are no longer with us.
No, I think you might be correct there.
Yeah.
I'm afraid long
Long time ago.
ago.
Yeah. But in that time, that would have been the car of the moment. Come to New Zealand and people are driving around our very rough roads back in it. Maybe a little bit of concrete road here and there, or tar seal, but most of it was gravel.
Yeah, very much so.
And the mud, of course. Yeah, roads turned to custard pretty quickly back in that time. And I seem to remember the government did a trip up north in similar cars in about 1919 to look at the roads in the far north.
You certainly see some horrific photos of cars with people pulling them out by hand.
Yes, right. Anyway, tell me about this. I understand this has been in your family the whole time.
Since 1917,
Wow.
it came into the. An aunt of my father purchased it from out at the military camp at Messines Way at Taraniki, just out of Featherston, which was obviously the a training camp
Yeah.
for the Second World War. So it's been in our family since then, and of course it's a little bit of an upgrade from a cycle car at its era, and so it lended itself more to women perhaps than gents.
Right.
So I dare say that's what took my great aunt's attention with it. So she motored with it. She was a spinster, so she drove it up until she wasn't able to, and I'm sure family members, particularly my father and his brothers, wouldn't have been allowed to have had it. If so, it would have been very rare. So hence it was well looked after in that regard.
Right.
I mean, and so prior to that, it was imported by A.H. Lewis and Sons in Gisborne. Now, I don't know as to whether the car found its way from Gisborne down to the camp, the chappie they purchased it off at the camp, whether he drove it down. But when I did some research about Lewis and Sons, they were agencies for a number of vehicles, but they never mentioned the word Saxon. So I just wonder maybe he imported it with a group of other cars that he was bringing in on behalf of somebody, and maybe it stayed in the locally. I'm not sure, but that's where we're at with that part of the investigation. But since, as I say, it's passed into the down to my generation, and we gave it a full restoration in 1990, and it's been on the road ever since. Yeah.
Tell me about when they built these things. How many would they have built? Do you have any idea how big the Saxon company was?
That was pretty well tooled up, in the sense they were very competitive. They purchased one site and then moved on to another. There would have been a number made. They were involved in the UK doing, in these distance trials and economic runs and so on. And again in the States, Saxon, they provided 2 suffragette women the same model car.
Wow.
For them to tour around the United States promoting suffragettes. And so these 2 women were quite happy, and that went all the way, and didn't give them very much trouble at all. They were very reliable for their time. As I say, they're very efficient on the Lincoln Highway. There's documented about them travelling that.
Wow. It's not a big car.
No,
you've got to say.
No, it's very light. There's very little, and this is why they didn't really, longevity-wise here in New Zealand, they didn't last.
No.
The engines were used for water pumps, saw benches, and all sorts of other things. The rotary
so it's not
hose.
a big engine either.
So, no, it's a nice little, Continental 12 horsepower job, but it has a large flywheel and plenty of torque, and it just drives that nice little light car nicely.
There's Continental, there's Waukesha, there's several other American engines that if you bought enough of their engines, they would put like Diamond T. You got Diamond T. You got Stewart,
yes,
all written on a
manifold.
manifold. Just wondering if there's a logo on the Saxon engine.
No, there's just a little brass plate with the Saxon Motor Corporation on the side of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it looks like it's got a acetylene.
It's got acetylene lights. The acetylene generator hasn't worked, and we've only got a daytime warrant for it, because I just wouldn't drive it on the road anyhow, and often you get caught with diminishing light. So we haven't had them going. I believe that you get quite a white light from them, but I couldn't still imagine that there'd be very much distance and so forth and whatever. But so we're purely daytime, to be safe.
Graham, do you remember what your first family car was? Like when you were a kid, what did you travel about?
Yeah, I remember we had an Austin A50 because I got into trouble. I got in the shed and pulled the starter on it, and my mother came roaring out in a hurry, wondering what was going on. So I was most probably about 5 or something like that. I was trying to start the car. So yeah, that's the first family car I can remember. And then we went. Father bought a Vauxhall
Velox, I remember that one, and then on to a Vauxhall Cresta. Yeah.
Oh, okay. What was your first car?
My first car was a little, a little Viva, a little two-door Viva, a little 1400 job. So
What year was that?
So that was. Oh, you've got me now. It was the roundy shaped one.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah.
Not the square butterboxy chop. Yeah. And then I traded that on a Datsun 180B.
And that went okay?
That was fantastic. Magic. Yeah, it was I didn't have any trouble with girlfriends after getting that one. But no, that was good. Yeah.
Excellent.
And we had it until we had a family, and my wife and I, and then we needed something a little bit better to put a pram in
and all the stuff.
And so you move into the
Yeah.
era of having a family. It's a bit like you talk to so many people who bought Model A's when they were young fellas, and they sold them to finance a house. And you move on.
Which all ties into the family.
Yeah.
Right. Well, good on you, Graham. Thank you so much, and you enjoy that little car.
We do. We really do. It's part of the family, and so be it'll carry on for another generation.
Excellent.
I have 2 sons and a grandson, so hopefully we'll
Keep
we'll keep on keeping on.
Yeah, good on you. There you go, folks. Graham. Next up, we were invited to the British and European car show held in Pakuranga last weekend, and we had a look at all the cars, something like 1,300 cars there. Absolutely amazing. Organisation, absolutely amazing. So let's start with a chat with Laurie, one of the organisers. Laurie, welcome to our little show, and you're the patron of the club that organises all of this. Tell us how it all come about.
Well, it started with the fact that the British show that used to happen about 20 years ago faded, and so about 10 years ago, 8 years ago, I suggested in our Jaguar Car Club committee that we think about a British and European show. And so I was given the responsibility, well, you sort it out, and then that's how it came about. We'd had a show previously, just a small one with about 10 cars at Lloyd Elsmore, and of course finding a facility that's fenced and people can pay to get in is not particularly easy. And so we thought, what about Lloyd Elsmore Park? Let's see if we can make it a free show. And so we went to the Howick board, which Richard has good relations with, as he used to be on it, and we were successful in getting funding from them, and the funding has just increased.
Wow.
To the point where they supply all of the funding, nearly all the funding for the running of the show. We have something like 1,200 cars here.
Good.
And
really?
we get about, we're not sure, somewhere between 6,000 and 10,000 people coming through the show.
An absolute marvellous event, and I've got to take my hat off to you guys. I mean, the way you've got this organised, you've only got a short window of time to get everybody in and parked.
That's right. And we've got some really good, all volunteers. The whole place is run by volunteers, and we have some really good volunteers that do a wonderful job of organising this, and particularly on the day. There's about 120 volunteers
Good God,
who are involved in setting this all up and getting it running. Yeah.
So what time would you kick off in the morning? 6:30, something like
Yes, we normally here at about 6:30. We come here on a Saturday and we mark it all out and set it all up on the Saturday before, and that's usually a 6-hour exercise. And then the Sunday it starts at about 6:30. The public are allowed in at 10. They're here from 10 till 3, so we can't have cars moving inside that time for health and safety reasons with the council.
Sure.
But the rest of it is just the extra time that it takes to set it up.
Absolute credit to you, mate.
Yes,
and congratulations.
Well, thank
and
you
well
very
done.
much.
Next up is Baden Pascoe, and Baden and I go way back, and I didn't know that he had this car. He's had this car for 30 years, so let's take a look at it. With me is Baden Pascoe, and Baden, welcome to our little show.
Thank you.
And you were telling me before you inherited this, which means it must be a family car from one of your relatives.
Yes, it belonged to my mum remarried, married a man called Richard Anderson, not Anderson, Anderson.
Yep.
And Richard was an English doctor, and he had a very unusual degree called an LMSSA. So that allowed him to do things like general practice, operations, appendectomies, cesarean, much the same as a military doctor.
Right.
That degree sent him on a very interesting adventure.
Wow. Well, I see it says here medical practitioner and adventurer.
Yep. Richard started his medical career in '53 at the Middlesex University.
Yep.
And when he graduated, I think it was about a 7-year course, him and a bunch of other British doctors, and from what I remember him telling me, they were sponsored by Land Rover. And they went overland to Afghanistan and Pakistan and worked for VSA. And I think, I'm not quite sure, he had a tie-up with Bernardo somewhere too.
Wow.
So, he did that for quite some time. And then he decided to go on a holiday, and he went to Australia and obviously met another medical person. And he said, we need someone in the Flying Doctor Service. So he did that for 13 years.
Wow. Flying doctor in Australia or where?
Yeah, Flying Doctor in Australia, yeah.
That's a big country.
Yeah.
So how come, when did he get this?
1953, and it was in storage while he was doing all these adventures.
Right.
And then he came out to New Zealand in about 73, and Richard and my mum got together, they got married, and sad thing happened. They had a practice in Russell, in the Bay of Islands, and Richard used to look after a practice in Kaikoui, and he was coming back one day in his MG, which I used to own, but I've since sold, and he walked around the back of it, and the young guy came around the corner, pretty intoxicated, straight into him, chopped his leg off, did a lot of damage to Richard. He was unconscious for nearly 3 months.
Wow.
But very, very tough man, very practical man. He survived. One day we were having a rum, and he says, "You better buy the Riley off me." Give me $2.
Really?
Here it is. So,
Wow.
so I've owned this for over 30 years.
Wow.
But it's a neat little car.
And it looked like this when you got it?
No,
No, you've spent some money on it?
it did, but it was pretty knocked around. It had lots of little modifications, and the car's been restored, but without over-restoring it. So I wanted to keep the car's patina. If you look at the door handles and things like that, but I wanted to also make it so it's usable. So it's a nice balance, because you can easily ruin a classic vehicle by over-restoring it. You kill some of its storyline by doing that.
Can we have a look at the engine?
Yeah, come around this side. So that's a
Riley 9.
That's a Riley 9 engine, and they come with different configurations. You can get them with the more tame cars have a single carb. That's got a twin carb. Mainly SU carburetors, which are a constant velocity carb.
Yeah.
That one's got Zenith carbs, so they can be coil ignition or magneto ignition. And that's got the Scintilla, which is a top end racing type mag on it.
Wow.
So the little camshafts are up high here, and they have tiny little push rods to operate the valves. So it looks like a overhead cam engine, but it's actually, in fact, it's not. So centrally mounted spark plugs, but I would say the combustion chamber would be designed by the famous Sir Harry Ricardo, who designed all the combustion chambers for all English engines.
Is that the fuel tank?
Yep, that's a fuel tank there, and they came with an auxiliary fuel tank down the back with an SU fuel feed pump.
So if you're getting a bit low, I suppose that's gravitational.
Yeah. I've tried to keep the car as simple as possible and as clean as possible, and its looks without, I always like, whether it's a boat or a car, I like a nice, neat, clean engine room or engine bay or, yeah.
Can we pull that bonnet over and have a look at the man's name? So we've got his...
Richard John Anderson, LMSSA, medical practitioner and
You know
advent.
what all that stands for?
I think he used to say it was a license to murder, slay, and something else. That's why you can never understand doctors' writing. If he makes a mistake, you can't go back. Riley Dash. It's got all the electrical gear is Rotax, so it's got a Rotax generator. 3 brush.
Yep.
So you can control the charging, starter, fuse there.
You push that or pull that?
No, you push that.
Yep.
That's the mag there. Typical Riley Speedo. These are all Jaeger. So Jaeger were the top end Smiths instruments, and they normally went into sort of more upmarket cars like Jaguar and Daimler and things like that.
Yeah.
Period ammeter. That's a little fuel gauge, but it's broken. But that's a replica tacho. Normally they had a clock there, but I like the tacho. It gives it a little bit more of a, racing.
And if you look down at the bottom of the gear stick there, that seems interesting. Does that move, or is that a gate system?
No, it's a gate.
Right.
It's a gate. Yeah. Riley's had all different configurations. If you look at this one over here, that little plum-coloured one, that's got what's called a Brooklyn's shifter in it, so it brings it the whole lot back. So you could buy lots of parts. You could buy the engine and the chassis, and you could buy lots of parts for them and have the body built and configured to what you wanted. So there's no really originality to them. It's just the period. But the Brooklyns are, a beautiful car. So yeah. So
our program's called Dad's Old Car. What was your family car? Do you remember?
Yep. When I grew up in Wairarapa, my dad, not Richard, Dad had a 39 Chef Coupe.
Okay.
And it was a reps car for Goff and Hamer, the Caterpillar tractor. So he had that.
So how many in your family? Just you, or you have brothers and sisters?
No, I've got older brother Mitch, my sister Rosie, who lives in the Bay of Islands.
And you all got in this thing?
Sorry?
You all got in the Chef?
Oh yeah. Had a little wooden seat in the back.
Oh.
Yeah. So, but that was a neat old car.
And what was your first car?
My first car was a Ford Popular. Yeah.
What did you get your license in?
I got my license in a Toyota Corolla.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? Yeah. After my, because I was motocross racing, I bought a Vauxhall Velox 53, the one, the LIP with the doors that swung out.
Oh yes.
But mine had a 57 Cresta engine in it, and there's probably some here, but it was a really, really neat car. So I towed a trailer, all over. I lived in Thames, all over down the Waikato, down as far as Tikawiti and Taupo, and all over the place doing meetings and things. And then eventually I moved up to Auckland here, and I worked for Forbes and Davies, a big Honda shop in Nelson Street.
Anyway, congratulations on your
Thanks,
beautiful
Noel.
car.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
And you get lots of looks when you drive it anywhere?
Oh God, everywhere. Yeah.
Oh shit, I remember this. Well, there wouldn't be very many men who say, I remember these.
I can drive it around without a warrant and a rego, and the police even let me go.
Yeah, good on you, son.
Okay, mate.
Bugger off.
Okay.
I was thinking about the policeman talking to you.
Nice to see you guys again.